that's where you guys get inspired. And today is very special because we have got people sitting around the country, guys, around the country, who are going to be forming part of our panel of experts. And so you're not only going to have to listen to me, I'm just here kind of to field the questions and see where we're going, because what I know is probably about that much. In fact, one of the people who I would like to introduce first was my most influential teacher ever in what I've learned in gardening. I met this man as a 21-year-old. God. Easy, Tiger. Thank goodness I'm sitting down. As a 21-year-old, young, inexperienced gardener, fresh out of Technicon. And this man was my boss. And thank goodness for the time that he invested in me, in teaching me gardening and the love for beautiful plants. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gerald Schofield from Sweet Valley Nursery, all the way down in Margate, KwaZulu-Natal. Geraldus, good morning. How are you?
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Great
are
to
you
be
all
with
good
you.
Down there?
Yeah, it's hot, it's humid. The plants are growing like crazy. And yeah, we're having a jolly good time.
Fantastic.
Growing hibiscus. I brought some hibiscus today to show you.
Oh my gosh, Gerald, show me the size of that flower. Hold it close to your chest.
Hold it close to my
Oh
chest.
my word. Guys,
this is a hibiscus called Marion Tom.
Hold it up a bit, Gerald. Let me see it. Turn it towards me. Oh, that's it.
You.
Oh, my nerves. Hold your hand. I want to see how big that guy is. Yo! Who's that,
Hello,
Gerald?
everybody. Yeah, it's called Marion Tom. It's one of the many hybrids that we grow down here at Sweet Valley. So, yeah, I'm looking forward
How many
to
hibisci? What are they? Are they now hibiscus? How many hibiscus do you grow?
Tricky question to answer. I knew them as hibiscuses when I was a kid. I'm sure they still are hibiscuses. But yeah, we grow a lot of them, 40 to 50,000 plants of around 50 to 60 different cultivars or hybrids.
Say that again, 50 to 60 different varieties.
Different types, yes.
Wow.
There's
so, Sweet Valley, Gerald, just explain a little bit. Sweet Valley, we can't visit Sweet Valley. You supply plants all over the country. Help me out here.
We supply from the Eastern Cape up to Gauteng and everywhere in between. We don't supply into the Western Cape directly at the moment, but pretty much throughout the rest of the country, to nurseries, to garden centers. So we are exclusively wholesale. Joe Public can't come and visit Sweet Valley, but you'll see our branded products in garden centers all over the place.
And how do I know that it's a Sweet Valley plant?
It'll be labeled with a Sweet Valley label sticker on it.
Right, folks. So if you're out there shopping at your local garden centre and you happen to see a label that says Sweet Valley, you're going to know it's come all the way from Margate on the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you, Gerald. It's lovely to have you on board. And that is the man who taught me almost everything that I do know or wish to still know, because he still has a lot to teach me. Right, from the rest of our panel of experts, guys, let's go down to the Western Cape in Tokai, guys. Mornay from Super Plants. He is in the shirt that I want. Mornay, I'm coming to visit you. Could I please have one of your uniforms?
Good morning to everybody. I'm sure that can be arranged. That's definitely can be arranged. And we have a lovely cool morning here in Cape Town. I'm sure temperatures are going to start climbing later on, but it's just a little bit of weather that we need at this time of the year.
Mornay, you're in Tokai. Explain a little bit about the area that you're in, Western Cape. You've been there most of your gardening career.
Well, the garden centre here in Tokai celebrated its 25th birthday this year, something that's a milestone, quarter of a century, so that's great. But as gardeners in the Western Cape know, we have literally 4 seasons in one day here in Cape Town, and gardeners that we look after in our feeder areas, everything from heavy coastal almost to, one wants to say, tropical. So we have incredible diverse gardening landscapes here in Cape Town, because weather and because of the coastal conditions, which makes gardening fun, but also sometimes an incredible challenge.
I can imagine you get some very interesting questions, because you're going to go from clay soil to gardening and beach sand to the plant needs extra, well, hope the plant doesn't have a wig because it's going to get blown away. I mean, you guys, it really is challenging gardening.
It is indeed, and obviously we have very hot, dry summers to contend with, as well as the very well-known southeaster, which is a very hot, dry wind. And that really defines, more than anything else, gardening here in the Western Cape, because of our extreme climatic conditions. For those of you who might not know, we had an extremely wet winter, with rainfall exceeding 1,400 mils, where our normal yearly average is around about 800. And that all happened in the space of 3 months. So that just gives you an idea. We go from the one extreme to the next, which does make gardening a challenge. But one can be very successful with the right plants, in the right conditions, with the right gardening management.
And you know, there's always a plant for that spot. There is so much to choose from. And guys, I think that is what I'm already getting so excited here, because we've got great knowledge that we are going to tap into from windy, from sandy, hibiscus, hibiscus, whichever you would like to name them. And our last panel of experts, guys, who it gives me great pleasure to introduce. Wayne and I have grown up in gardening. We were kind of the new kids on the block about 100 years ago. Not really. Anyway, and we've really worked together for many, many years in Sana, part of the green industry. And I like to call him one of my mentors. And we're great on the dance floor, by the way, and we're okay gardeners too. Ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Stewart from Eckhard's Garden Pavilion, who is in Bedford View. And what a lovely garden centre. Wayne, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you. It's really cool to be with you. I put my glasses on and I can actually see you. You know, we from when we've known each other, 30 years odd, we certainly have grown up. Now we need glasses.
Tell us about your garden centre. I mean, I love going there because I tell you, and you know, it's a terrible thing, guys, because you know, if I ever go to a garden centre, there's always one plant that has to come home with me. And Bedford View is quite close to OR Tambo Airport. The plant gets put in the hire car, gets debagged, unbagged in Wayne's car park at Eckhard's, and then shoved in the suitcase and brought home. True story. And that's one thing that I love about Eckhard's, because the plant selection has a slight twist to it. Tell us about that.
So this garden centre is a bit of a legacy garden centre. It's been here since the 60s or thereabouts, late 60s. So I've been here for like 30, just on 30 years. And we love plants. Well, I'm a plants man. That's what I like. I love plants. And that's the biggest danger you have in it when you run a garden centre, is that you buy plants all the time that you love into your garden centre. And then what you hope is that people will find and actually love plants as well, and love the same things you do. So we garden here in Bedford View in a garden centre that has quite a big history of unusual stuff. It's been a growing nursery in its time. People like Keith Kirsten, Linton Johnson, when they were students, those guys were actually even here. So it's always been around. We see ourselves as custodians, or I see myself as a custodian of Eckhard's, looking after the stuff. And I love getting at something different, unusual, and teaching people about plants, what's new, what's fabulous, what's great. And it's well known that I have a list of favorite plants, but it changes every day. So sometimes you'll go, this is my absolute favorite plant, until the next trolley goes past, you go, that's one of my absolute favorite plants. So if you're a plants person, that's what happens. So yeah, we're lucky in Bedfordview that we have good underground water, but we have the extreme heat waves like everybody else is having in Gauteng, the joys of gardening in Gauteng. We do all that. But with me, I bring my own personal experiences through that. I actually garden. It's like, you know that story, Tanya, the mechanic's car never works. Well, I've yet to find a horticulturalist whose garden doesn't work. We tend to stuff it full of things continuously. I'm sure, we know you have a big collection too, so that's how it is.
Well, I know that I have, I've seen Wayne's garden and I do love it, and he gets to share some pictures with me and send them of the camellias in flower or the beautiful Nandina, and yes, another true gardener with a great selection of plants and a wonderful garden centre. So guys, that's our panel of experts. We are ready for you. And most importantly, hello and welcome to all of you guys at home, on your couches, wherever you are, on your phone. Thank you for joining Rooted in Gardening. So I'm going to get up. I've had my time on the couch, and let's get across here and see who's online this morning and say a very, very good morning to you. Right, guys. Tess, good morning. Good morning. Are you a beginner gardener or an experienced gardening? Oh, we've got a question. Right, we've got a question from Tess. Carmen, good morning. Chelsea Soul, good morning. Obsessed with Eckhard's selection. My wind charm is such a nice addition to my indoor area too. Okay, I hope she's on that loyalty program of yours, Wayne. Seriously, I really hope that she is. Chelsea, if you're not, I believe they've got a loyalty program, so jump onto it. Monet, do you guys have a loyalty program at Super Plants?
Yes, absolutely we do. It's a very easy program to use. You just join up at the till and you basically get 5% back in points that you can use against your next purchase and payment. So it's really quick and easy, and great rewards that come along with it.
Okay. I need to come shopping. Right. I can get 5% back. Right. Lana's, good morning from Somerset West. Chanel, good morning. Suzanne Govender, good morning. Shanae, good morning. Terry Lee, good morning. Good morning. Carrie Goodwin, good morning. Good to see you there. Pindile, good morning. Karen, gosh, we have got loads of you online this morning, guys, and this makes my heart warm. Carmen, you say you are a beginner gardener. Suzanne is from Verulam. Gosh, guys, we have got people all over the country. We've got Somerset West. Sure, right. Okie dokie. So here we are. Guys, you have met the panel, and we do know that we've got one question that has already come through, and it's probably a question that that is every gardener will have this question. So panel of experts, this is not like push, who's going to push the buzzer first. In fact, the question that we're going to talk to, almost every single live or every event that I go through, every person has a lemon tree. Yeah, you've got a lemon tree. And a lemon tree, oh by golly, if that one lemon tree in your garden does not give you lemons, well then there's a crisis. A complete crisis. And I get that, guys. I so get that. Because, you know, I'm one of those gardeners. And those bubbles on the leaves, I think we've got a pic of that. If we can go to the pic and have a look at what these, but there it is. Do you see those little bubbles? I mean, it looks like, I don't know. Well, it looks like it got burnt or something. And, you know, we see this so often, especially on the new tips. Wayne, I'm going to go to you. Can you give us some advice on this, please?
So it is really one of the most common garden questions that we get. You can be guaranteed that every weekend there'll be at least 3 or 4 people going like bumps on the leaves of the lemon tree. So what it is scilla, which is a little insect that stings the leaf, and then the leaves are misformed, or the cells are misformed, and then as the leaf matures, that's what gives you the bubble. So your challenge is if you don't treat it, your lemons, you get greening, which which means your lemons start to never get green or ripe or anything like that. So a lot of times you'll go, we're just going to leave it and see what happens. And if you leave it, year after year, it gets worse. Eventually, the tree starts to lose its leaves or your fruit doesn't ripen. So you do need to treat it. And it's a very tricky thing to treat because it's something that only affects the new growth. You want to make sure that you're only dealing with it when the tree's flushing foliage. It doesn't help to spray a lemon tree that's got bumps on the leaves and nothing else happening to it. If it's growing actively, that's when you want to spray. It doesn't go away. Those cells are misformed. So it's what to do and how to treat it. So it just depends on what kind of product you like to use. A lot of people, you go with things like neem oil. The neem oil is a very easy one to use. It is organic, so it controls a lot of the insects, but you need to be then aware that you're using it as a contact spray at the time of flushing.
Wayne, so if you're saying the bioneem, can we spray that? What is it going to smother the insects, and then can I eat the lemon tomorrow?
And then you can wash and eat. So you can wash and go, but it isn't. Generally, you find that this problem that you're treating it when the fruit isn't ripe or there's very little fruit on the tree. So our standard advice that we always go is if you're treating your lemon tree, pick anything that's bigger than a golf ball off, because lemon trees, even though we tend to think, oh, lemons grow the whole year, it is seasonal. Well, particularly in Gauteng, our lemon trees are seasonal. So when you're spraying and needing to look after the tree, your fruit is still green, and you've still got some time before it goes through. So you're spraying when there's not a lot of fruit, but you can wash and eat, wash and go. Neem oil is an organic product, so it can tend to do that. Some people don't like to do that, and then they want to go with something that's systemic, or they want to use a poison that's going to actually control it for a longer period. And then you need to be very specific. If you're using any insecticides on your lemon tree, you have to look at the residual of the product. So
I'm gonna hold you there, Wayne. I'm gonna hold you there. And talking of systemics, now we use this word. You know, us gardeners are very. I don't know. We use these words that we think. You know, it's like when you go to the doctor and they start using these terribly long words, and you say, "Well, I don't really understand what that means," and you've got to like Google it. And we use the word systemic. Gerald, I'm going to go to you. Please explain systemic and what does that mean? And especially if we're going to use a systemic insecticide on something like a lemon tree, on an edible.
Okay, systemic means that the actual active ingredient of the pesticide or chemical that you're using is absorbed into the plant cells. So it doesn't necessarily have to be sprayed onto the leaves. It can be watered onto the root zone, and it's absorbed over a period of time into all of the whole plant system.
Right.
And it has a long residual period where it is effective and is able to control the insects that are actually either eating the plant or stinging the plant or making contact with the cells. So the important thing
we've got to be careful, Gerald, of that residual period. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So on all of the products that you find in the nurseries, garden centers, etc., there is a safety period prescribed in the leaflet that you have between last application and harvest, or when it's edible. And that's something that everybody must take note of and subscribe to and operate within those parameters. Otherwise, you stand the risk of poisoning.
Very good point. Mornay, what do you guys use in the Western Cape for Scilla?
We recommend using oleum, which is a natural paraffin oil, which works very well because it also combats one of your other problem insects on citrus, which is scale. We find that once Scilla has come along, and Scilla looks like a little mosquito, it's got an upended abdomen, and once it's stung the plant and you get this bubble that forms, it often causes this little cave where you get other insects which feel very safe to go and make their home in it. Mealybug is one, and the other one is scale. And we find that oleum works very well as a secondary preventative against these insects which come along after the plant has stung. But as Wayne says, it is so important because psylla will always manifest itself, or the result of psylla stinging the plant will manifest itself on new growth. So one has to be just very vigilant at that point in time where your citrus is pushing out that new, normally darker colored new leaves, and that is the time that you must actually be spraying to prevent psylla from taking hold in the in your citrus tree.
Well, there you have it, folks. There are two options for lemons. And I know, I mean, this is a question that everybody has. And you know, one of the best tips or best pieces of advice that I got from Mr. Gerald Schofield as a young seedling was called the powers of observation. So in the morning when you've got your cup of coffee, you walk around the garden, have a look, inspect the plants, spend time with them, because that's when you see if there's a hoho, if there's a change. You know what? It's not only about the bad things, it's about all the good things. It's about a bud that's about to open. It's about something that is in full flower that morning. And that's, yeah, powers of observation. So guys, let's get you. We've got Carmen has sent through a question. Carmen Fontaine, I think I've got that right. So Carmen, your question is, I started with succulents, got them from a friend last year. Ooh, lucky girl, you. Not growing so well. What do I feed these plants with? Do I spray? Oh, guys, panel, I hope you're ready for this reaction. Do I spray bicarbonate of soda on the leaves? I think I'm breaking out into a sweat. What do I feed the soil? I bought soil for succulents and replaced the old soil with new soil. Carmen, I'm afraid you walked right into Tanya Visser's terrible trap there. I'm going to shoot to Monet. Talk to me about this on this question.
Okay, well, I don't know where that bicarbonate of soda thing comes from, but that's a definite no. Definitely not. But when we think about succulents, be it our indigenous succulents or cacti variety, we tend to think that these are hardy plants that never need feeding, and that is so wrong. Because they normally get planted in extremely well-drained soil, which is what they require, especially in the Western Cape, that they don't get waterlogged during the winter months, you're constantly flushing out the little bit of nutrients which are there. So I would always recommend going for a liquid fertilizer, a liquid organic fertilizer for succulents. There is a wonderful product on the market by Daco distributed. It is a Pocon product, that is the brand, and it is specifically formulated for cacti. But if you have larger succulent plants like portulacas, for instance, our speckworm, there you can use a well-composted, pelletized organic fertilizer, which is high nitrogen, which breaks down slowly and won't over-stimulate the plant's growth, but at the same time, keep it nice and healthy and green right throughout its growing period. So I think the important lesson here, Tanya, is that we do need to fertilize, or we do need to feed at least succulents and cacti. It's not as if you must just leave them and look after themselves. They're great at storing water, but they still need nutrients.
No, that's a very good point, Monet, is that, and also the soil mix that we're using, guys, a good quality potting soil, and I think everybody's got their favorite, but I think this is what you were referring to, Monet, is something like BioOcean, which is a pelletized chicken litter that has also got some seaweed in it. And guys, these are the pellets. It looks a bit like rabbit food. Well, don't feed it to the rabbits, but a really good slow release or organic product that can be used on roses, veggies, your succulents, and it works on a slow release basis. So yeah, for me, look, I use a lot of it. Wayne, your comments on the succulents?
So I also have quite a bit of a personal succulent collection. And it's that thing, you know, if something's not in its natural habitat, you still have to look after it. So succulents aren't necessarily indigenous to your garden, or so if you're importing plants into your garden, you need to look after them by feeding. So for succulents, always well-drained soil, always feeding I also I love the little Biganic. I do the little sachets, which are quick
Yeah.
and easy on the
Snap, buddy.
Yeah, always. And there's the other option when you're planting is to use the little root builder one, which actually is a powdered version that stimulates root growth. So if you are replanting your succulents, that's great to add in. But make sure the soil's well drained. Make sure that you don't disturb them too much once they're in. Keep them clean, and don't necessarily believe everything you read on TikTok that you can spray onto your plants to make them grow. Sometimes people make up stories.
And guys, an interesting one. Gerald, Mr. Schofield, many years ago, had his first plant collection at the age of 7. Am I right, Gerald?
Somewhere around about then, yeah. Even a bit earlier. I think I had
And
plant
what
collections
inspired
before I
you?
could read and write.
What started that, Gerald?
Well, I grew up on a nursery in Pietermaritzburg called Carter's Nursery, which was legendary back in those days. It had been eventually disappeared from the industry. So I think it was just in my genetics.
Yeah, I think so. And whatever it was, it also attacked me, and that virus bit me. But it's a very good virus of succulent collection.
On, because now I don't have any.
All righty, guys. Thanks for your input there. Let's go to Chanel. Chanel, how do you... Ooh, whoppa. Here we go. Okay, just by the way, sorry, I'm just going to reverse. Bicarb is a no-no. So I always say, folks, if you find one of these homemade remedies, all right, which a lot of us find when we're scrolling through, if you find a homemade remedy, the question I want you to ask yourself is, does your local GCA garden centre, how do you find a GCA garden centre? If you go on Life as a Garden's website and you say, click find a garden centre near me, you will find one in your area. If they do not stock 20-litre drums of bicarbonate of soda, then it's not good for your garden. That's the bottom line, guys. And that is always kind of like my go-to. Epsom salts. Well, if it was that good in such huge quantities, garden centres would be selling them in 10 kg drums. So let's get to Chanel's question. How do I get rid of lily borer on agapanthus? Oh, my Aggie's panties. But Wayne, I'm going straight to you.
There's two things. So a lot of people confuse the clivia worm and the agapanthus worm, and they think it's the same thing. But the one's a moth and the one's a butterfly, but they both can be very destructive to those kinds of plants. So it's always tricky because the actual insect is crawling inside the leaf. So you can't always use a contact spray or a spray that's going to actually touch the insect. So for us, your options start to get a bit limited. You either have to try and spray with an organic where you can get hold of them and get into the mix. Cut out the worst is always a good option because sometimes...
Wayne, just hang tight there. We're pulling up an image here. Can you see that?
Those are so those worms that have got the stripe on them, those are the ones that are the most typical of the lily borer, the actual lily borer that actually is a little butterfly when it grows up. But you see
they are so gross.
And as you see how it's stuck inside the leaf. So if you use a spray, he's not going to get caught. You're going to have to pick them out by hand. But if my leaves look like this, I would be pulling it out. In nature, what happens is these things attack these plants. The mother plant dies, and then the babies, the side plants or the bottoms shoot up, and you get a renewal of the plant. So it's sort of a natural process. But when it's happening in your garden, not everybody wants to go through that, and not everybody wants to have that, what you showed us there, happening. So you've got to find a way of cleaning it up, or otherwise what you do is you're going to go clean up, spray, and it is one of those things where often preventative is really good, and then we're back onto possibly using one of the lighter duty systemics, something like insecticide granules. That's not quite as strong because you get different strengths of insecticide.
Now, Wayne, that's a product we use. Wayne, we use that a lot, or I use that a lot in my potted containers. It's so much easier because insecticide granules, it's so easy because you don't have to mix anything and you can just sprinkle it around the plant. And that's a systemic, is that correct?
It's a systemic and it's also a low volume. So it's not the most toxic systemic that you're going to find. So the residual is much shorter, the period that it stays inside the plant. And then what it does is it allows the plant to actually get over the local population what's in there. So because it's inside the plant, like Gerald said, it's inside the system of the plant and in the cell. So it takes a couple of days, and then when those caterpillars and worms are actually eating it, then they die off, and then you can protect your plant that way. So it's one of those products you can do with that. But agapanthus and clivias, it's two different things, but the reaction is very similar. So
absolutely,
just cross over and they think, oh, it's the same thing. It's like it's not the same thing, but the results are as disastrous. And in Gauteng, we saw the clivias used to only get affected in sort of November, December. Agapanthus only got affected much later. Now that our seasons are a bit skewed and temperatures all over the show, we're finding things are earlier. Even for Christmas beetles, same concept. They come in and they fly in at night. They should have been out. They come out for Christmas. They've been out for a month already. So it's just
absolutely.
How do you spray for things that you can't see? Because often, there you showed us the worms that you could see. Often you go, I don't know what's happening. The plant's collapsing, but that's because there's one little guy that's all the way in the bottom. And
they do have a very, very funny way of hiding. But Gerald, I know that there are systemics, and we, here in KZN, either one of those we have almost at every change of season, whether it's on the agapanthus or the clivias, and likewise on cycads. What are your recommendations in terms of a preventative treatment that we can use for these plants?
There are a number of systemics on the market, and they're available in the consumer market or the retail market. One of them is Kohinoor. The active ingredient is imidacloprid. And a lot of the growers use that as a preventative spray or a drench around the root zone on both of those plants.
So it's poured and it's applied around the plant. And folks at home, It's poured around the plant, so it's diluted and drenched around the plant. Morné, can you give us a bit of advice there?
You know what I'd like to hear? So far what's been said is absolutely correct and fantastic advice, but specifically Anthospora, as Wayne mentioned, is a moth. And one of the things that you can do in your garden to reduce the infestation, if you have any lights on in your garden at night, switch them off. Because if they are in the vicinity of your either potted agapanthus on a patio or in the garden itself, all that is helping to do is attract the moths to that particular place. And the moth only lays one egg per plant. And they're quite actually easy to see. And one of the things, interestingly enough, which we've noticed here in Cape Town, because it's a relatively new pest, 10, 15 years ago, we did not have the Agapanthus in Cape Town. It was introduced probably by the movement of plants, we're not sure. But the moth seems to favor blue flowering Agapanthus more than white flowering Agapanthus. I'm not sure why that is, but it is something that is very noticeable. So if you have bright lights in your garden close to your agapanthus plants, rather have them switched off at night, because that is one way of naturally preventing the moth from being attracted to that area.
What brilliant advice. Thank you, guys. I mean, there we've got it from the three experts, and there's certainly some sage advice there. Kim, question. I love gardening. Why are my basil leaves turning yellow? I remove the flowers. I imagine it's sweet basil. I remove the flowers when they come out so that it doesn't go to seed. Who's going to help me out on this one? Geraldus.
Yeah, it's always a challenge. I think that you find in the real heat of summer that basil loses condition. You find also when it's very, very wet and we have a lot of rain that they get yellowing of leaves and the lower leaves start to go off. And I would also imagine that they need to be kept really well fed so that the growth is of the highest possible order in terms
And there's an interesting thing, Gerald, which is in terms of herbs and pots, and is that, and I just want to grab a plant here to demonstrate this, is that, very often we will put herbs in really small little terracotta pots or in a black pot, and this isn't a herb, but just imagine that it was. But as this plant grows and as it so matures, well, there's not enough space for it here. There's not enough space for the roots, for it to hold enough moisture. That's a thing, Gerald.
absolute nutrition. Remember, that's growing in a pot or container relies entirely on your generosity in terms of providing nutrition. Every time you water, the soluble salts are washed out through the drain. They need to be replaced. And as you mentioned very much earlier, it's all about powers of observation. It's to go out there, look for the telltale signs, and react and respond timeously of the plant.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. I hope that helps with the basil. But I'm going to say, bottom line is we're looking at a bit of stress. We're looking at you need to increase watering, possibly increase the size of the pot, and give it a bit of food. Right. Wayne, this one's coming up to you from Yandi Radebe. My question is, how do I know when my plants need fertilizer and which type should I use? Pity plants can't send WhatsApps.
True story. But, the same as I was saying earlier, plants that are not in their natural environment need to be looked after. Gerald just mentioned as well. You do need to feed on a regular basis. We eat 3 times a day. Some of us need a snack in between. Plants eat continuously. That's how they grow. So if you're feeding at least once a month to every 6 weeks through the garden, remember slow release fertilizers like your organics that we've spoken about feed over a longer period. So the plants get food. So you don't necessarily have to feed as much if you're feeding with organic. But if you're feeding with something like a multi-feed or a liquid plant food that's a quick release fertilizer, quick release means quickly gone and you have to repeat quite quickly again. But plants need food all the time, just like we do. So often we will say to somebody, when last did you feed? And they go, we fed it when we planted it 6 months ago. And now it's time to feed.
It's like it can't happen once. It can't just happen once. And I guess everybody has, and I'm sure each one of you have a different way of remembering or your own methodology or when to feed plants. So, Morne, do you have an easy thing? With the apps and stuff, and put a reminder in your phone, but give us some thought on this.
I think the golden rule to all gardeners is less more frequently when it comes to feeding of plants, when it comes to nutrition. So, the old idea of feeding my lawn in spring and that's it, end of story. No, that's not the right way to do it. It's every 4 to 6 weeks on a continual basis right throughout the year. And often people will forget that you need to pre-fertilize before a plant comes into its flush season. So let's say, for instance, take a deciduous fruit tree, for argument's sake, like a peach tree. There's no point in waiting for the plant to start flushing and then start feeding the plant. You need to, in its dormancy phase, already build up the nutritional value of the soil. So at that point in time when the plant needs it, it's actually already there. So my golden rule when it comes to plant nutrition is less more frequently. And that way your plants will never go through a starvation feast type of cycle. They will always have a little bit. And then, of course, the most important rule for me is always alternate what you're feeding. I don't think there is one, and we know this as garden people, there is no one fertilizer which is consistently good for the plants all the time. Different fertilizers, different combinations, different mixes have different formulations. So there's always something in another product which will work better for your plant. It might be even a micro element, something as simple as boron or manganese, which is lacking in something that you're using continuously. So I like to also say, juice it up a little bit, use more than one product. The products that contain auxins, which come from seaweed, are exceptionally good because they are the one thing that helps stimulate mass growth. And obviously, the bigger the root mass of a plant, the better the absorption of the nutrients. So that's something to take into consideration as well.
Perfect. So, guys, so the bottom line is yes, we do have to feed. Whatever it is that you're using, try and mix it up. So change here and there. And read the label. If it says every 4 to 6 weeks, then that's what you're going to be doing. If it's every 10 days. Liquid plant foods are really good. Gerald, you're a strong believer, I know, in liquid plant foods to get plants to perform at their best. And I think this could definitely help Chanel that asked the question.
Yeah, very much so. Liquid plant foods are absorbed much quicker by the plant, sprayed onto the foliage and absorbed through the leaf surface, or else the roots and absorbed through the roots. But you also find that there's very little chance of the plants being over-fertilized that way, as well as being damaged or in terms of fertilizer burn. So yeah.
So those would be, so we would do it, gardeners back home would literally do it like they would follow the instructions, pop it, weather it into the lid, and as you would be watering.
Yeah, always read the instructions and apply as according to the rules and regulations. It works every time.
It does help to read the instructions, guys. Right, next question. Now, Wayne, I know that you are quite an indoor plant, house plant, passionate fundi. Chanel wants to know, how do I know when to water my indoor plants?
Well, most indoor plants are killed with kindness, as we know. That they just overwatered, or you water them, your helper waters them, and your husband or your partner walks past and throws in water and your plants drown. Always make sure that your house plants err on the side of dry. So I'm a firm believer in once every 10 days as a standard line. There are a few things that need a bit more depending on what it is, but generally it's about once every 10 days. And then, in Gauteng we get cold in winter. When it's cold and miserable, you can skip your watering or stretch your watering out. When it's hot and humid, just like humans, plants need a bit more water and a bit more moisture. So general rule of thumb is once every 10 days, depending on what it is. Stretch it out in winter, step it up in summer. That sometimes if it's really hot, you might be watering once a week, but you certainly don't want your plants standing in water because plants need air, and the water in the bottom of your pot or in your overpot actually starts to block the air movement to the roots, and then your plants can end up, they literally drown standing in water because they can't breathe, and you get problems in the soil which you don't even really want to start on. So
yeah, we've seen that, Wayne, a lot, and I'm sure that Morna and Gerald have seen this as well, where the plants, they simply are just watered into the lovely pot holder that they are kept in. And Morna, have you ever had any very sad individuals being carried into your garden centre that have no longer got roots because they rotted off?
Yes, I think it's an important concept for gardeners to understand that when a plant is drowning, it's just the same as us as humans. It's due to the lack of oxygen. In other words, by overwatering, you are expelling all the oxygen that's in the soil, and plants need that. So, as Wayne, correctly said, the best way is to wait for your plants to almost dry out completely before rewatering. There are a few exceptions to the rule, as always. But good house plant watering is part science and part art. It really is. And the plants will talk to you, like Tanya. They will tell you drooping leaves can be an indication that they need a little bit more moisture. But unfortunately, in certain plants, it can also be an indication that they've had too much water. So at the first sign of drooping leaves, go and have a look and see, is the soil too damp or is it dry? If it's dry, add water. If it's too damp, abstain from any further watering. But it's very, very difficult because there's no hard and fast rule. It depends on where the plant is standing. It depends the time of the year, as Wayne said, and it depends on the container size. And so it's really one of those things where you have to feel your way through it. And once you know what it is, then you stick to that rule. But yes, letting it dry out between waterings is probably the best way to go.
Thanks, Monet. And we have I think we had the image standing by for us. There we go. If we can just pull that across to the live, there we go. Guys, this is what we use at home, and I'm sure that many of you would have used this as well, Wayne, Monet, and Gerald. It's literally the finger test, guys. Take your finger, pop it onto the soil. If it comes out and you can feel it is damp, you can feel your finger is damp, you can see the soil is wet, is still a wet medium, then, it doesn't need 2 liters of water, guys. So finger test, literally touch the soil, wait for that. You can start doing that on about your 7th, 8th, 9th day. Remember, one of the plants, as Monet was saying, that requires an exception to the rule, because there always are, would be your ferns. They really don't like drying out. If they dry out, they end up kind of like scarecrows, crinkle cut chips. So keep those a bit damp, all right? Those don't really like drying out all that much. But we've got loads more questions here, and time is not on our side, so we're going to go straight to Angela. Angela Wright. Good morning, everyone. Angela says, average gardener here, okay, guys? Which flowering plants do you recommend that are heat tolerant, drought tolerant, sun tolerant? My lavender, vinca, white petunia, and portulaca are doing well, but I'm looking for more. My temps of Angelonia fail every year. Ah, and here's one here, looking gorgeous, looking beautiful. Okay, so Angela, great question, because look, there have been KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Seaboard, Gauteng has had incredible heat waves, guys. And so we know you have had lavender, you've got lavender, vinca, petunias, portulaca. Guys, I'm going to jump to each of you and ask you for 3 plants, please, that Angela could try out in her garden to deal with sun and heat. Let's start with you, Wayne.
Oh, thanks, eh?
It's a pleasure.
Salvia, always one of my favorite plants for pollinators. And you get all different kinds of salvia. So if she's looking for something that's shrubby and perennial that will actually last for a couple of years, giving her flowers right through the summer, there's a salvia for that. If you want just a bit of annual color to fill up and brighten some pots, there's some large flowering bright salvias, and they handle that heat and extreme quite well. Remember, one of the secrets to growing stuff that's in extreme heat is always a bit of mulch. If you can mulch stuff, you can get away with a lot more that goes through that.
I would love if we could pull up a picture, guys. Sorry to interrupt you, Wayne. If we could find a salvia pic that we could pull up, please, guys, because there are so many, from the dwarf varieties to the taller growing and incredibly tough. I mean, you can literally beat them. And, when I prune them, I prune mine exceptionally hard, and they really just come back. And for the pollinators, I think they are brilliant. So we've got, I mean, there we go. Let's just pull that image up there. There we go. There's one, I think it's a Sally Funds, one of the dwarfs, the low-growing ones, Wayne.
Yeah, so often people treat this one as a bit of an annual, but it can give. And then there are others again that actually last you about 10 years before you need to start looking at replacing or pulling out. So salvia is very high on the list. Of course, we here as an easy fill, we love Tulbachia, the wild garlic. That's as tough as nails, and all the lavender and purpley flowers that come through. So some people don't like it because they say it's hard and tough and it stinks. Well, it stinks, so it gets left alone by the bugs. But it's a nice, easy one for not
Yeah.
a lot of.
So that's the wild garlic.
The wild garlic, and it clumps as a perennial. You can use it as a border, filling in. So if she's doing something like lavender and Tulbachia and salvia, she fills up with quite a lot of permanent stuff. And if she's using her vincus for bright color, from looking at her choices that she's done, I think her palette has been slightly pinky and soft and those sort of tones. But if you were going like, let's just spice it up, we'd go with marigolds, some of those flat top marigolds.
But I'm going to hold you there. I'm going to hold you there because I'm going to jump around here. Wayne, because if we're going bright and spicing it up, and sorry, Gerald or Monet, I might be stealing your thunder here, but if we're talking spicing it up, I mean, we could even go with something wicked like this Coreopsis. I mean, guys, I love this. I mean, it's like a kaleidoscope. It's like an explosion. Almost like, what do you call those things? Like fireworks, literally. And that could be an alternative, Wayne.
So one of the things about the Coreopsis is that there's suddenly this year, the growers have given us about 5 or 6 different varieties, all these two tones. South Africans love a two-tone, and all the two tones are coming back. A lot of people know them as seeing just the plain yellow, and they think, oh, it's just a bit of cosmos growing somewhere, and it's that tough. So we like the hybrids. They don't self-seed so easily, so they don't spread and run or anything like that. And then they give you unbelievable color for months, and particularly if it's hot and dry. If we have a cold and wet...
And I will back you up on that one, Wayne. I mean, we have got Coreopsis in the garden. It's been in for many years. It literally gets pruned back within an inch of its life, and it comes away. It's in the grass garden. The only water it receives is from the sky, and it's truly amazing. Monet, what have you got there? Thank you, Wayne, for those, and I hope those are really going to help you, but salvias of any kind. Monet, what's up your sleeve?
I think we must definitely never forget about our geraniums or pelargoniums, especially your ivies, because they have got that leathery, very tough leaf, which is exceptionally hardy, especially in windy conditions. And they come in a whole range of different color options, everything from pure white all the way through to deep, deep reds and everything in between. I love the fact that they sprawl. They can be used in hanging baskets successfully. And they just continuously flower, spring and summer. They just keep on going, So that's definitely at the top of my list. One must also consider
Monet, you can't see the on the other side of the screen here, but actually I have a pelargonium, the ivy leaf pelargonium that I'm busy showing the folks at the moment, and yeah, we love it. We do love them in KZN and the more humid climates. I actually find the ivy leaf better than the round leaf one. They just seem to be a whole lot tougher, and it can cope with our summer rain. And I mean, this guy's looking incredibly healthy. So yeah, ivy leaf pelargonium, number 1 on the list.
Tanya, I think we find that with your normal zonal pelargonium, the round leaf pelargonium, they are susceptible to wind bursts. So you're getting, your sort of brown tipping here in the Western Cape, where it doesn't happen to your ivy leaf at all. And then we must look at the new euphorbias. Some of the euphorbias which have been around for a long time, like Diamond Frost, we now have the new pink varieties. And they also, right throughout the summer months, they can tolerate incredible heat. They do like a little bit of shade every now and then, I have found, but they also can just spice up any border. and tolerate heat, they tolerate humidity if that comes along, and they just continuously flower. Really, really good for pot plants.
Yeah,
And then last on my list,
I'm still on the hunt for tickled pink. It hasn't quite. I think the transport truck arriving in KZN is taking the long route round, maybe past Bloemfontein to get here with tickled pink. But I do have Euphorbia Diamond Frost that I'm busy showing off here on the screen now, and an absolute winner. Couldn't agree with you more.
Well, tickled pink, which has a white pinkish foliage color, is actually quite spectacular. And unlike KwaZulu-Natal, I'm glad to say that they are available here in the Western Cape at the garden centres.
Morning.
And last on my list is a plant which has sort of gone out of favor by gardeners, but I always like it, and it's making a comeback, and that's Hemerocallis, the normal old daylilies. So, there's nothing that flowers like a bright yellow Hemerocallis all the way through to the hybrids, which have that dark maroon large flowers. And once established, these are incredibly hardy plants. They can tolerate extreme heat, obviously with a bit of water along the way. They're not drought hardy to go without water for periods of 2 or 3 weeks. But because they have these thick rhizomes, which really, really hold a lot of water, they can tolerate a lot of heat, and they just give continuous flower right throughout the summer season. So there's my 3 picks.
I think those are wonderful, and I can actually see those in the garden. I mean, here we are, folks. If you can zone in on here, Mason, we've got the beautiful euphorbia here. We've got the diamond frost. We've got the ivy leaf geranium. And imagine if we had some yellow daylilies just popping out the back and just saying hi, And these are no-nonsense plants, and that's really what we want for our garden. So, Gerald, what are your 3?
Well, you stole my thunder with the coreopsis, I must be honest.
Oh, sorry.
Because I've been incredibly impressed with the uptick coreopsis that I've seen. I must say, coreopsis for me always seemed to be a weed, because on the roadsides you've got yellow coreopsis flowering all over the place, and they get mowed, and there's even been...
I do have the other color, Gerald.
It might be an alien invader plant. And I've always seen them bit of a weedy plant. Yeah, no, those are the uptick.
Look at these colors, guys. I mean,
red and yellow and gold and bronze. And
isn't this?
We grow them and we sell a lot of them. And there's some growing at the entrance of the property that I'm renting on at the moment, and they've been in flower now for 6 months. The one with the yellow and red flower. And every morning that I get up and drive past and go to work, I look at them and I think, wow, I'm overall. So, yeah, they have.
No, completely. Amazing. Gerald, and if we put that with the, with the diamond frost here, if we put that great. Here, beautiful. I mean, look at that combination. Isn't that just wicked?
With those coreopsis, where I am, are a whole lot of sun patients. Now, you'll find sun patients will take sun and heat, but when it's really dry, they flag and they need a lot of water. And if you're not able to give them that plentiful water, they will disappoint. But wow, in the climate that I'm in at the moment, they're just in full flower and make a spectacular show for months and months on end.
I mean, Gerald, here's a beautiful sun patience. This is called Purple Candy. And guys, We've been having temperatures here in KZN between 33, 35, 36, much like Gauteng. And these have been amazing. We've got them in the garden, we've got them in pots, in garden beds. And yes, they do kind of like hang on a little bit and they droop a bit, but certainly they do come back again, and they really do their thing, which is quite amazing. And we've got one more. Gerald, give us one more.
One more, okay. Begonia, big bronze leaf red. I went to a presentation by one of the Benari representatives 3 or 4 years ago, and he showed us
I have one for you, Gerald.
Grown in China along a motorway. 40 kilometers of begonias in full flower in the medial strip. Now, a motorway is hot it's got tarmac on either side, and there was just 40 kilometers of red begonias flowering. And I told one of my customers up in Vryheid about this, and he said, no, begonias grow in shade. I said, well, try some. And a few weeks ago, he phoned me and said he's planted some in his garden in St. Lucia on the hot KwaZulu-Natal north. And it has performed so fantastically that people are stopping outside and asking what this red plant is that's just smothered in red flowers in full sun.
Well, I love that, Gerald. Be careful. You could be causing a traffic jam there, but I love it that
Absolutely.
plants cause traffic jams. Excellent.
Yes.
Guys, Gerald, those are our 3 amazing plants. And funny, we didn't curate that question, guys. The question came up and I picked those plants out this morning at my local GCA garden center, and there they were: euphorbias, pelargoniums, coreopsis, sun patience, big bronze leaf begonias, and there you have it, and those are for pops of color. Guys, I don't know where the time has gone, but it has run away with us, and I want to say thank you so much. Wayne from Eckhards in Bedfordview, thank you for your time, thank you for your knowledge. And guys, remember, if you want to find out where Bedfordview where Eckhards is, please just pop along to the Life as a Garden website for some really good plants and some great gardening advice. Have a lovely weekend, and thank you so much, Wayne. Gerald Schofield from Sweet Valley Growers down the South Coast, plants available all over South Africa. Have a look at the plant label and you can see if it came from them. Thank you for your advice, Gerald. Very much appreciated. And to Mornay, all the way from Tokai in the Western Cape, guys, from Super Plants in Tokai, thank you so much. Some great advice there. And I love the moth and the light. Definitely going to be working on that one. So, guys, and to you watching at home, thank you so much. I do hope that you've enjoyed this masterclass rooted in gardening, brought to you by Life as a Garden. If we didn't get to your question, we'll be answering it shortly. And remember to check out the Life as a Garden YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, guys, you're going to find loads of videos that are going to give you some great practical gardening advice. And from me and the team, how many days till Christmas? Too many, too few. Well, you know what to plant in your garden to spruce it all up. How many days? 13 days. Oh, caramba. Oh, Merry Crisis. Right. Guys, take care of you and yours. And as always, God bless you and happy gardening.